NFL Inside Blitz Week 8. And it's been a very rough week on me. I'm barely even here, but I'm lucky to be here. Joined by Ron and Ted. And I'm going to ask you, Ted, from Sports USA Radio for 20 plus years. I'm unshaven and barely showered. As a radio gig, do you have to get all cleaned up and presentable, or can you just show up any way you want?
No, you get to have the perfect face for radio like I've had forever. It's great. That's what's fantastic about that job. You don't have to look good because nobody cares.
So go ahead and take us, present. We actually have great games this week. And one of the only games that it's the only game with two teams winning records. I'm going to take your thunder away from you there.
No problem. We got the Patriots at the Jets in the morning. That's 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. My pregame show, Sports USA, at Sports USA Live and online. And the Giants and the Seahawks, the two greatest teams of all time, the only matchup this week with winning records. It makes 0 sense. This season makes no sense. And that's what we love about the NFL. But the Patriots at the Jets, guys, look, Patriots coming off an awful loss on Monday night. When you lose at home to the Chicago Bears the way they did and made them look good, and I don't know if the Bears actually have that capability of being as good as they looked that night. It's going to be interesting to see if they can bounce back and maybe pick up a little something from that, at least from a confidence standpoint. And the Jets are just doing everything right these days. Mac Jones for the Patriots is back as the starting quarterback. Bailey Zappi hour is over. We thought they wouldn't get rid of him until it was crappy hour, but he's doing okay. He's just the backup again, and that's the way it should be. And Zach Wilson, you never know what guy's going to show up, but it doesn't seem to matter because the Jets are playing smart, and you got to like the way they're putting things together, Ron.
Well, today we're going to play a little game, contender or pretender, because you could really talk about all four of these teams and say, okay, New England, contender or pretender, Jets, contender or pretender, and then in the second game, the exact same thing. I'm going to run a few stats by you guys, and then you could start answering the question, contender or pretender. For New England, great defensive stat sheet. Lost in the shuffle of how they've been performing is that they have 24 defensive sacks. They're once again one of the leaders in press coverage. It's hard to complete passes against them when in the NFL you tend to complete about 64%, 64.5%. They're allowing under 60 yet again. But on the Jets side, normally you see drafts take a few years to develop. Not with the Jets. They drafted Sauce Gardner. He's already one of the top cornerbacks, and he's a shutdown cornerback. They drafted Breece Hall, who unfortunately is going to miss the rest of the year. He was running like wild, well over 5 yards a carry. Jermaine Johnson is helping their sack ratio. Their offensive line is generally holding up pretty well. Wilson is their best pass receiver. These are all rookies. The Jets really hit it in the draft. One thing about Zach Wilson before I pass it on to you guys is he was turnover prone as a rookie. This year, they're really being careful with him. 4 games played, averaging 25 total passes per game, 14.5 completions, 1 TD in 4 games, and 2 interceptions. The Jets just don't want him to get into trouble because their defense is playing much better. Roll it over to you. Are these teams contenders or pretenders?
Are they intentionally playing him that way? Or how are they handling Wilson? Are they intentionally making the play calling like that and making things vanilla, or is he really struggling this month?
I think it's similar for both New York teams with Daniel Jones. The same thing. They're playing fairly conservative. Don't screw this game up. Don't make any stupid mistakes. And they're not. So that's, they're in every game because of that.
Yeah, their offensive line isn't great at pass protection, so the fewer pass attempts, the better. And with Breece Hall taking over the reins, they could establish the run and put themselves into shorter situations for third downs. But 25 pass attempts is in the Chicago Bear territory as far as number of pass attempts. But the Jets are getting by because they're staying in games, because they're playing much better press coverage, and because frankly, their defense was so bad last year that it's pretty much middle of the pack now, which is quite an improvement for them.
Yeah, I believe the Jets also lost an O-lineman this week as well. So that's not going to help their cause. You lose Breece Hall. Boy, that one really hurts.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing. It's too bad because he really looked like something special there. But now you got the old bugaboo for the Jets, all right? The Patriots have beaten them 12 straight times. And I talked to a couple of guys yesterday, both of them. I brought that up to both. Well, why don't we hear first from Hunter Henry of the Patriots, who I spoke with yesterday and talked to him a couple of times over the years when he was with the Chargers as well. Chris?
I was daydreaming. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. No, actually, I was looking for some charts and I can't find them. Did you want the interview played now?
Yeah, let's go with Hunter Henry.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right. Daydreaming is good sometimes.
Let's talk about first the Monday night loss. How frustrating was that, specifically in the second half after a quick spark from your quarterback change?
Yeah, I mean that was a frustrating one for sure. I mean, no one was happy. Never good to lose like that, man. Especially on national television, especially on a big time game. But we've got a good opportunity ahead of us to bounce back, learn a lot, and try to get better and really learn from it for sure.
Are you surprised at all you've had a few less targets this year, just 2 against the Bears, considering how Coach Belichick's teams love to use the tight ends?
Yeah, I control what I control, man. And
yep.
I have a lot of other things I got to do on the field, and there's a lot of tasks, especially at our position, that we're asked to do on the field, and that we got to execute at a high level. So we're trying to lock in on those two, just trying to control what I can control, man.
You talk about the difference of catching passes from Mac Jones and Bailey, the spin of the ball, your route running. I'm sure there's a little different personal chemistry with each.
Right. I mean, obviously I've had a lot more reps with Mac, just dating back to last year, but over the last month or so, I mean, obviously we've gotten a lot of reps with Bailey. They're both great players, and they both come to work every single day, ready to get better.
What about the differences, though? Is there a little bit different feel to them?
Well, I mean, Mac has a little bit more games under him, so obviously he's going to carry that with him, with Bailey just being young and continuing to learn and grow with him in a way, too. So I think there's maybe that's a little bit of difference.
We're with New England tight end Hunter Henry, and Mac understandably back as your starter this week, but what's it been like with the kid Zappy coming out of nowhere? And, boy, the town has really taken to him.
Yeah, he's done a good job. I mean, he works hard. We've enjoyed having him here. He works really hard. I mean, he's fun to be around. He's got a lot of confidence, and happy to see him have some success and continue that as we go.
Yeah, he's really helped the cause there, no doubt. Hearing different stories from the training camp, how much is Coach Belichick involved in the offensive play calling compared to Patricia and Judge?
I don't know. You gotta ask Coach Belichick that one. That one.
I love it.
That one's beyond me, man. I'm just out there trying to do my job and what I gotta do.
Okay, so what are you seeing on film that looks like the biggest challenges against that Jets D?
Sure. I mean, they're rolling, man. They're playing really good football. Obviously, playing really good complementary team football, good team defense. I mean, they just got guys at each level that really disrupt the game. They're a defense that's going to be a tough ask, especially going on the road over there. They're really, really good, playing really, really good. So we'll have to be ready to go definitely on Sunday.
Last thing, I just spoke with Tyler Conklin over there, and he says the room is talking about you guys have beaten them 12 straight times. The response to that, sir?
I don't pay attention to that, man. They're having a great year, man, and we need a big time win, especially at this point in the season. The division game, man, we're not paying attention to really the past or anything going forward. I mean, they got a really good football team over there that we got to really lock in on things.
Yeah, it really is getting close to the halfway point. It's all about the division now, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, any division, we play these teams, play the Jets twice, all these division opponents twice a year. So, I mean, every game matters.
Well, there you go, Ron. Ron planted a couple of those questions in there, And I
He
knew
sidestepped him.
No, he didn't. He Belichicked him is what he did.
Yeah.
That's what they teach him there. When you go, he wasn't like that when he was with the Chargers.
I tried my best, Ted. I tried my best.
I couldn't have pulled that out. If I had a dentist pulling teeth, that wouldn't have helped on that one. But look, he's a really nice guy. I like what he's brought to that team, and he's should be, I think, more of a target for those guys. They're tight ends. They don't have the greatest receiving core in the world over there in New England. Getting a little bit better, but you should be throwing to the tight ends a lot more than they are, in my mind.
Well, Ron and I talk about this probably every other week or so. I just don't understand why teams cannot find more tight ends. I think tight ends are crucial for offenses, and it just seems if I was managing an NFL team, I would have 2 to 3 quality tight ends on my roster at all times and be implementing their usage on a regular basis. I think that they're really difficult because they're so darn big and hard to bring down. And it's amazing how there are not more quality tight ends in the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
2 words, Rob Gronkowski. The absence of Rob Gronkowski is noticeable every single Tampa game. And Hunter Henry came over with high hopes. I mean, he had tremendous production as far as receiving when he was with the Chargers. And that's kind of dropped off the map with New England. And I agree, they're asking him to do more things, Ted. And he did say that to you in one of the questions.
Yeah, he did have a good year last year, though, in touchdowns. So, I think it actually had, I believe he had 9 touchdowns last year, which tied him for the most of tight ends in the league. So he did fine, but he had some a little bit of shoulder surgery. We talked about that. I edited it out of this thing. It didn't overly affect him, but they're not really looking for him as much this year. But one guy who's come on big time, who was more of a backup in Minnesota, but now he's getting a great chance to play with the Jets, is tight end Tyler Conklin. And I talked to him as well, Chris.
I'm thinking when you left the Vikings, could you have ever expected this kind of successful transition to a new team with as many question marks as they had?
Yeah, you know what? It's been interesting because you come into the situation. One of the intriguing parts about coming here, one of the things I was excited about was going to a team that was doing all the right things in free agency. Obviously we had a good draft and just like wanting to go somewhere to help be part of the change in the turnaround. And initially, I'm not really sure what I expected or thought. I kind of just, went in with, the expectation to go in there and work hard myself and, see where things went. But once we got in here as a team and we started practicing in OTAs and camp and whatnot, I think we realized in this building quickly, that we did have a special group and that we could go out there and win games. It was just a matter of going out there and proving it. And, we're slowly doing that.
Yeah, it's great to watch. It really is. And what a start in New York. Second on the team in targets and receptions, third in receiving yards. You played 82% of the offensive snaps. So how about the role on the team? Is this what you thought it was going to be? And what's it been like playing with Zach Wilson?
Yeah. Last year in Minnesota would be my first opportunity to start. And my big thing in free agency, and one of the reasons I was excited to come here was just an opportunity to take the next step in my career. And, I think it's been awesome to be able to go out there and then have those opportunities in the pass game. And I think as a tight end room, we got a good group that can really do it all between me, CJ, Jeremy Ruckert, and Kenny Yeboah. I think that, there's a lot of tight ends that only block or only catch. And I think in our room, we got guys that are that can do both and not just willing to do both but are pretty good at it. So it's been a great start so far.
Yeah, we've had CJ on a few times. He must be keeping that room. Everybody's laughing.
Oh, man, he's something else, huh?
He really is. You got a story about CJ?
Oh, no, not that many. He does just keep the room laughing. I mean, we got a great room with Coach Mid. I mean, between Coach Mid and CJ, everybody's always laughing because Coach Mid's beautiful. Hilarious too. I mean, heck of a coach, but he's funny. His one-liners and stuff are just unbelievable.
How about your winning streak here? How much fun has it been around to be around the entire organization, the fans, and they've been just dying for this?
Yeah, it feels amazing, first of all, because like you said, the fans, they've been dying to win for a long time. And, to go out there and be able to win games, not just for us, but for them, it's felt really good. And just, the support and, just be able to do it here in New York City is, is there a better place to turn things around? Probably not. So it's been unbelievable.
There you go. We're with Jets tight end Tyler Conklin, and you guys have lost 12 straight to New England, the last 6 at home. So has that been a topic of conversation in the room?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's something we've acknowledged since, OTAs, just not winning in our division. And then, obviously, we go and we get a win against Miami and kind of break that streak. And now we come here against, New England, who, even just last year, the way they came in here and did the things that they did is something that we've talked about. And, we're excited to go and keep changing the narrative.
What about exactly what you're practicing for against the Patriots D this week, your biggest challenges?
Yeah, they do a lot of different things, and they give you a lot of different looks, and they try to make you think and try to get you to mess up. So our big thing is just play our game, and we know we're going to have to beat man coverage, and, they play a sticky man. They like to grab and, latch onto you around the sticks, and we just got to go out there and be effective and lock in and do our job and not let them get us out of our game.
Tyler Conklin, tight end there of the Jets. And, one of the things that I noticed from these two tight ends, they like being involved in the offense. Isn't that a shock?
It is. It's shocking. Those are some great questions for both of those players. This is a fascinating game that's it seems actually quite one-sided in the marketplace as far as what bettors are thinking. What are your thoughts on this game from a betting standpoint, Ron?
First of all, tight end, I didn't mention in all their draft haul and so on. The tight end room was abysmal the last 2 years. And now bringing in Uzama and bringing in Conklin has changed another position for the Jets.
Yep, no doubt.
The Jets have done it with smoke and mirrors passing lately. Here's a stat I stole. First quarterback since Tim Tebow to win 2 in a row and passing for 105 or fewer yards.
I'm sure there's a lot of pride behind that.
Now, that being said, I like the Jets this week. First of all, I think there's line value. Secondly, Belichick has one less day to prepare. And thirdly, I think the matchup tends to favor New England is a little bit soft versus the run. So the Jets could continue to be ball control, not have to force their quarterback to go into the teeth of that defense, because you don't want Zach Wilson to commit the errors that the Jets have done probably for 12 consecutive games against the Patriots. But you can't ask for a better situation. A very confident Jet team with New England coming off Monday Night Football. So let's see what happens. I don't know about you, Chris. My numbers point to the Jets.
I'm kind of confused because I've listened to a lot of podcasts this week, and it seems like, all the support is on the New England side, and the focus has been on Zach Wilson and his lack of depth of target, and basically focusing on what he's been doing. And I see the game as, well, wait a minute, they should be able to run the ball. They should be able to have a dual offense. It's not like the Patriots have a good enough defense to shut them down on either side of the ball. So, or passing or running. So those are my thoughts. I think that there is the first 3 has just popped into the marketplace minus 120. And I think it's going to continue to go New England's way. And I do see that there's value on the Jet side with you, Ron.
Is there no such thing
I
as
actually
home field
think
advantage for the Jets, or what?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I say, is there no such thing as home field advantage for the Jets in this game?
Well, I see the Jets. I'm looking at my last 5 trailing weeks, and the Jets and New England are side by side. And I look at the full season data, and well, I'm not going to talk about that here, but it's close enough to say I don't understand why they're getting points at home, to answer your question, Ted.
Really? Okay.
I have it at Pick'em personally. I like the situation that New England has a little less rest. I actually think the line will go down, not up by game time. I think people realize that this is a little bit high. the whole narrative of bet New England after a loss, every team's different. Every year is different. And I think blindly doing that is, in any game, anything can happen, but I don't think that's the thing you want to follow. If that's why, you better have another reason to like New England than just because they're off a loss.
Well, you get the pat on the back award this week for actually having a selection. So we're going to give you a pat on the back,
I
Ron.
picked my spots. I had no selections last week at all.
Yeah, we know. We've totally. And by the way, that last week's game, we had Indy and Tennessee, right? And I believe it was Indy. That was their 5th game in the division already, right?
Right.
And here we got New England. They're 0-1 in the division in week 8. How strange is that?
How many division games have the Giants played?
I'm not sure.
That division doesn't play very many first half of the year.
The Giants finished with 4 or 5 or out of divisional
that's pretty
opponents.
typical, though, too, isn't it, for that division?
Typical in that division. They're
right.
The last division to play head-to-head against each other, it seems.
Anyway, so
segue.
Let's go to game number 2, Giants at Seattle. The only matchup of winning teams this week, guys. Look, bottom line is, how do you figure both teams are doing what they're doing? I mean, the Giants, and we talked about the conservative offense of the Jets, and very similar with Danny Dimes, who I call Danny Pesos in our studio over there, because I'm not sure what he's worth. But look, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, he's fine. And that's all they care about right now. And Geno Smith is the comeback player of the century. I mean, come on, this guy. I heard an interview this week with Mark Sanchez, his former teammate with the Jets, right, who I used to deal with when he was the quarterback at USC. And Mark had a great take on Geno Smith. He said he came in with Sanchez in New York, and he said if somebody said to him he'd be doing anything well in, the decade later, he said there's no chance. He didn't have his work ethic was okay, but he didn't have the passion for the game. He had a good arm, but that was about it. He learned how to study and watch film. He learned around other pros that he played with, like Phillip Rivers when he came to the Chargers. He learned how to be a quarterback from these guys. So now he is not doing anything crazy on the field, and he is Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones with a better arm. And he's just incredibly impressive. What do you think, Ron? I mean, I think it's a fantastic story.
Well, we talk contender and pretender again. These teams are obviously overachieving this year. For me, the Giants are a little bit smoke and mirrors, and Seattle, even though in all our shows I touted them and I touted the fact that Pete Carroll is such a teacher, the talent level still isn't that great on Seattle.
Not at all.
And he's getting by. He has 2 really fine receivers, obviously Lockett and Metcalf. And Metcalf is probably a no-go this week and maybe for another couple weeks. Yeah. So he really doesn't have a number 3 receiver. So that's going to hurt a little bit. He lost Penny, but he has, my number 1 rated running back coming into the draft, Walker. So he's got some weapons there. He's got 2 rookie. You talk about the Jets draft. What about Seattle's draft? They start 2 rookie linemen, and they're both doing very, very well. They're starting or seeing significant time with 2 defensive backs that are rookies. One of them a completely raw rookie that's coming in, and then they have the rookie running back. They've got 5 starters from the draft. Last year, Seattle drafted 3 people.
I was going to say, when's the last time you even said Seattle had a decent draft, let alone one that's turned their season around?
Since Richard Sherman and Cam Chandler.
That's a long time ago.
That was a dynamite draft, but it's been that long.
Wow.
Let me give you a Giant stat before Chris takes over and
is that a big stat? A really big stat or a Giant stat?
Do you know who's leading the New York Giants in receiving yards? Anybody?
No.
Richie James.
Who?
You know how many yards he has?
I know who Rick James is.
Yeah, exactly. And so this guy could sing too, then, right?
Yeah, well, he's very close in yardage. He has 191 yards.
That's
Wow.
not leading
7
anybody.
games or 6 games. He is tied for 92nd in the NFL.
Wow.
And he's leading the Giants.
6-1,
So
baby.
you're talking about, making sure that Daniel Jones stays out of harm's way. Same as Zach Wilson, except for that even when Daniel Jones passes just a routine number of times, 25, 27 times, he's still getting sacked.
Right.
But they're still winning. They've had 8 games of where it's one score, or all their games have been one-scored games, and they're winning them.
By the
So
way,
do you have a pick in this one?
What's that?
No, I'm listening to you first.
Well, then you get the kick in the nuts.
No. Have at it. Your play of the year coming.
No, actually, on Sunday night, I started. Here's a little bit of a tip for preserving accounts. I started buying up Seattle money line on Sunday, and I was just doing it, one bet at a time, to not draw attention to myself, because I thought I'd be stealing at minus 135. And yeah, 135 still a great price, but when my numbers came in, not as wide of a difference as I had anticipated. So I'm happy with my minus 135, but would I take the -3 at this point? I'm not so sure. But overall, I do like the Seattle side of things. You've got the Giants traveling once again across the entire country. I think Seattle's the better team here. If you look at the last 5 trailing metrics, Seattle's playing a tad better. The overall season is significantly better. I'm not saying the Giants are junk by any means, or frauds like a lot of people are saying, but Seattle's been playing better on both sides of the ball. You would think that this is a Seattle spot here. So if gun to the head, I would definitely play Seattle minus the 3, but I'm happier. I'm 135 at the moment.
By the way, I want to apologize to Coach Pete Carroll and the entire Seattle organization and every Seahawks fan in the world. Not one of us has said the first place Seattle Seahawks. I mean, come on, that is psychotic. There's no way that all year we've talked about, maybe they'll. I mean, it looked like a total rebuilding kind of a year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but you know what? This isn't a big game that's, where you've got both teams playing for first place like Carolina and Atlanta. So that's where the big games are.
Gotta love
true.
it. Yeah. Almost into November, and we're talking about teams that are normally out of the playoffs that are in the playoffs.
So Ted, what about you? Do you get a pat on the back or a kick in the nuts?
Do I get a pat on the back for what?
You got a pick on this game?
No, to me, it's a total toss-up game. Look, you got to give the edge to the home team. You're shaking your head. You're nauseous just at the thought that I don't have a strong passion for either side. I got to give the edge to Seattle. Look, it's a tough place to play. And let's give a little credit to the Giants, too. They're 3-0 on the road this year. All right? So that's pretty damn good. But it's another thing going 3,000 miles with the great Danny Peso. So we'll see what happens with him.
Lost in the shuffle is the fact that the Giants, and I don't know how they're doing this, they have either the top or the number 2 pass defense in the league in terms of percentage, around 56%. And they're doing it without Bradbury and another guy that they left out of the equation, that they let go. So they have a revamped and what I thought was a bottom 5 secondary allowing 56%, which is really, truly amazing. With that being said, I kind of agree with Chris. I don't know if I could pull the trigger on 3. That's a tough number. But Seattle has a general time-tested NFL situation. Won't get into it too much. 53-22 against the spread, which automatically points me in that direction. And it's something I talked about with Chris during the season as we were trying to look at schedule. Look at how the pacing of the schedule went for different teams. And this is something that's more important than the power numbers, adds to the metrics, and so on and so forth. This is the time, and Chris hinted at it a little bit, where the fatigue comes in for the New York Giants. They had the road game. They have another road game up in the Pacific Northwest. They've been involved in beating some really tough teams. Who did they just beat? Where do we have? They beat Green Bay and Baltimore, for goodness sakes. Those are emotional wins. And now they're going up against Seattle. It gets wearing to play in all these one-score games. Does the bubble burst for New York, or do they find another way to make it happen in the fourth quarter? I'm not enamored with Seattle's overall talent. Two really highly competitive teams, but due to situations, I would give the edge to Seattle, and that's the side I would look at.
And you're not enamored by Geno Smith?
Well, I love his comeback story, like you guys have talked about. His percentage is outstanding, but they will miss Metcalf to some extent. When you got that 3 in the play. I mean, these are guys that could have won against the New York Giants secondary. Tyler Lockett's amazing. He's a magnet the way he catches the ball and gets behind the defense. But if you don't have to double team Metcalf and you're going to go against some other receiver that's unproven for Seattle, they're really, the interesting thing about this game when we end up talking about props is that both teams can run on one another and both teams can't really stop the run. So there's not necessarily going to be a lot of pressure on either quarterback.
Good time for Geno to find his tight end this week.
I think the thing that we haven't pointed out is the huge difference in coaching for the Giants is making all the difference in the world. They're not making these stupid mistakes at the end of games. They're putting themselves in a position to win, and that's the whole philosophy of any success. I've said it with contest success. You just have to get yourself and give yourself a chance to win. That's the same way it is with any sporting event. Get to that ninth inning tied, get to the, final 2 minutes in a one possession game and either win it or defend it. Another thing I'd like to kind of dispel a little bit is the Seattle Seahawks 12th man at home. And I've mentioned this, you would think that it was some sort of a juggernaut. But if you look back, they're 2-1 this year. They were 3-5 last year. They were 7-1 in 2020, but before that, 4-4, 6-2, 4-4. They don't have a single undefeated season at home since 2012. And they've lost 3 or more games, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those seasons. So it's not the same as it used to be. That's the only thing I'd like to point out. So when people sit there and they want to give you 3 points for the Seattle home field, no. Their home field isn't any better than a lot of other people's home field advantage.
Well, it's a lot louder there, okay, than most other.
What?
Places. You see that? You're yelling at me already. But let's be honest. You still have to have the guys on the field. It's the 12th man doesn't play, and after their great defense left them and everybody dispersed and went into retirement or traveled off to another team, it's not the same team anymore too. So you can't just go into Seattle and expect, a big crowd's going to change everything. So this team has been on decline for a handful of years now. So that's part of the equation.
Yeah, a big part. Okay. So before I get into the props, these 4 teams we discussed, New England, the Jets, the Giants, and Seattle. Chris, you go first. How many of those 4 and which of those 4 are in the playoffs if you have the newspaper the second week of January? Which 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these teams have made the playoffs?
It's going to be pretty hard for both the Giants and Seattle to avoid the playoffs at this point. When you look at the strength of schedule that those teams have, they both have don't they both have last place schedules, or Washington had the last place schedule? It doesn't matter. That whole NFC East has the easiest schedules around.
Yeah.
And Seattle has the 4th place schedule and the easiest schedule in their division remaining for sure. I saw that this morning. So I think the Giants and Seattle are going to make the playoffs. As far as New England and the Jets, that's going to be a little bit dicey. We're going to have to see. The Jets are having trouble staying healthy. If they lose any more players, I think that's going to harm them. The Patriots go through a really easy schedule, here for the time being. So that can prop up their records. We're going to have to see. We're getting a really strange situation this year with a lot of bad records, and they're kind of like strange where they are. I mean, the fact that Tampa Bay is 2 games under 500 in the NFC, and some other teams. Cincinnati's faring better than we kind of expected them to do. And they look poised to do very well. And they're going to battle with Baltimore. Cleveland is not going to do anything, apparently. We expected them to do it. So, but, out of those 4 teams, I think the Seattle is the most assured to make the playoffs. I think the Giants are second. And probably, without really examining the schedule, I'd probably I'm not sure the Patriots or the Jets make the playoffs.
Okay, Ted, your turn.
I agree with both exactly what you just said about the Patriots and the Jets. Look, I'm looking at the division, and Seattle, it's been a weaker NFC West than I think we expected. I totally expect San Francisco is going to come on in the second half as long as they remain reasonably healthy. They should be fine, and I think they're going to win the division. I think it's a battle between the Rams and the Seahawks for second place and maybe a wild card spot. I think that's going to be the race there. And as far as the Giants are concerned, it's been the NFC East is so much better than I expected it to be. I didn't think Dallas was going to be this good. I still think it's only week 8. There's time for them to go into some kind of a tailspin. I expect Philadelphia to remain solid. So maybe the Giants have a shot to get in as a wild card. I don't totally trust them, but you got to love what Brian Daboll is doing. So if they continue, and this, they're learning on the job with him too. This is a team that could actually get better as the season goes along because of that factor. And I think a lot of people, you got to give him a lot of credit there. He's probably the best of the new first-year coaches, at least so far, right? So I think that gives them an edge. I think, I want to say it's between the Seahawks and the Rams as far as making a wild card spot, though.
Let's not forget Green Bay is going to be 2 games under 500 also after this week.
No doubt. And that's bad.
So here's my take, and it's kind of weird because of the 4 teams, I think the Giants are the weakest of the 4 teams. And more smoke and mirrors. But I think the Giants, in my opinion, have the strongest playoff chance of those 4 teams because, like we said, they're going to play all these other division teams, and they match up with Washington. They hope they match up with Dallas. They've had trouble in the past with them, Philadelphia. But the Giants, I think, are the strongest. And as much as I like Seattle all preseason, I didn't say Seattle was going to win 9 games or anything like that. I still think Seattle is not going to make the playoffs. I think the winner of – now this is interesting because we got to do this game. I think the winner of the New England Jet game will make the playoffs and the loser won't.
That makes sense.
Let me put it that way.
Totally makes sense. One thing I'm looking at for the Patriots, though, I don't trust their offense. I brought up the question to Hunter Henry, and you brought it up to me. Who's running that offense? Okay. Yeah. So far, they've been all over the place. And why is it going to get any better? They don't have a true offensive coordinator. It's got to cost them in the long run. It's still just week 8. I think it's a major negative looking ahead.
How many wild cards do we get in each conference?
3.
So you're going to have 2, probably you're going to have at least 1 from the NFC East, probably 2. And you're not going to have one from the NFC South for sure. It's unlikely you're going to get one out of the NFC North. So between the Rams, well, it is an open season. A lot of people think Arizona can nab this division somehow if they go on a roll. So it's the Wild West there. But
Yeah,
I'm
if
still
they
going
don't
to
go
stick.
on a roll, if they don't go on
I
a roll,
still
they
think
might lose
Seattle
their
can
coach.
get the. I think Seattle can get the wild card.
Maybe.
I mean, it'll be interesting to track. That's what makes your two games, Ted, this week so fascinating.
I'm still giving you a kick in the nuts.
And, and the NFC is just, it's disappointing to me. It really is. It's just weird. It's so hard to figure out.
Let me talk props for about 90 seconds. Ted,
Yeah,
how'd we do with Paris Campbell last week?
Not bad, huh?
Not bad. And then his number came out 2.5 plus 125 or something, in addition to the 20-something yards. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of props up right now because of all the injuries going on. But I'll tell you what I am looking at in the New England Jet game. Because Corey Davis is not playing, his targets are going to be split among other people. So I'm looking to see whether Conklin gets extra targets and maybe he's priced too low, or Wilson's priced too low, or Berrios is priced too low. Somebody's going to be priced too low. And because I said there's going to be heavy run in the New York Giants-Seattle game, I think we're going to see quarterbacks not have to throw as much unless one team gets way behind from the other. So that means receptions are probably going to be down for a couple of players. So when those targets and when those numbers come out, I'm going to look at that. And maybe the number of completions, or certainly the number of attempts, might be a little bit lower than people think. That's what I'm looking at. We don't have props to actually share right now.
Right. And by the way, Sports USA karma is a reality, okay? Anytime the guys come on my pregame show, they tend to have a really good day. So Hunter Henry, Tyler Conklin, just play the overs, whatever the hell it is.
Let's see how that goes. Okay.
And next week, guys, what do you got next week for us? You're gonna
we got good games next week again.
Colts at the Patriots and Rams at the Bucks. And Tom Brady will still be single next week.
Are any of them over 500?
No.
Wow, that's right. How disappointing. But they're still interesting matchups because it's week 9 now for next week.
None of them are over 500. Ted, go back to the drawing board and get different games.
Can't take me anywhere. It's embarrassing.
They could. I mean, there's a chance that one or two of them could be by the time, if the Colts win, if the Rams win, and so on. Chris, what are you looking forward to this week? What game or games or situation interests you?
Go to Ted first.
Okay, well,
go to Ted first.
I got a couple of games. First of all, the game in London, Denver against Jacksonville. I could care less about the game itself, but if Denver loses and they are embarrassed, is that the end of the Nathaniel Hackett era? That's going to be interesting to me. Cleveland. It's a Monday night game. They're 2-5. If they lose 5 in a row and it's on a Monday night, is Kevin Stefanski in trouble? He should be, in my mind. This team is a giant disappointment. We've talked ad nauseum since before the season started how deep their roster is, and they can't do a damn thing. It's embarrassing. I don't care who their quarterback is. That's no excuse.
It's easier for me to say what doesn't interest me, and I'll tell you the Washington-Indianapolis game. If I was in a prison cell, and I'm not sure I would watch that game, but
did you get a good signal in there to get a?
I don't know, but I just have no interest. But just no interest in that game, and believe it or not, I don't have a lot of interest in the Raiders Saints just because they're just they're just so unpredictable.
By the way, you know who also doesn't have interest in that Colts Commanders game? Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't care about that game.
Yeah, that's the problem. 2 games I'm interested in this week is San Francisco and LA. Extremely important game. Certainly if you go 0-2 in the division head to head on that, and the Rams are in danger of doing that, that's a problem. But I will tease something. I won't say it here, but I'll save it, Chris. I have something to say about San Francisco and the acquisition of Christian McCaffrey moving forward. And the other game that's interesting to me is Arizona and Minnie. Minnie just had a week off, probably not the best time for them to have a week off because they were really rolling. And you got Arizona, who brought Hopkins back, and he caught 10 balls his first time. Look at the stats sheets. They're almost dead even between Arizona and Minnesota. The coaching is probably a little better from Minnesota. You got the new coach bounce with the early bye and stuff like that. To me, it's a fascinating game, and the results are going to tell me a lot.
Yeah. Do you remember the last time these teams played?
It was a shootout, right?
A shootout? Are you kidding me? I remember I was doing yard work outside, and I was sitting. I told myself, okay, this game's over like 3 times. And it's just like touchdown, 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 touchdown. And it was like in no time. It was like every 25 seconds, it seemed.
Yeah.
And by the way, Cliff Kingsbury, how many times are we going to mention his name throughout the year? Every time is a little more pressure on him. If they fall to 3-5 in that division, when's the pressure going to start being all over his ass?
Well, and the 49ers
the whole
3-5 with a loss.
Yeah, well, he did get an extension, but that's it. If it's not the Bidwills, that thing is ripped up so fast you don't know what hit you.
Yeah, I think he saved his job on Thursday.
Yeah, one game should not save a job, but I agree with you.
All right, well, you don't have to go home, but you have to leave here. So that's going to be it for Inside Blitz Week 8. We'll be back with Week 9 and 2 fascinating games to discuss and some other tidbits. And hopefully Ron gets another pat on the back with a selection next week. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys again soon.